What's up, my fellow soap opera obsessed friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you thought the drama in Los Angeles was starting to cool down, you are in for an absolute shock today. We need to talk about Katie Logan, because what she is currently pulling off on The Bold and the Beautiful is nothing short of a psychological masterclass. We are so used to seeing explosive screaming matches, drinks being thrown in faces, and tearful ultimatums that echo through the halls of Forrester Creations. But right now, Kate is executing a revenge plan that is so devastatingly quite so ice cold and so brilliant that the people she is targeting do not even realize they are caught in her trap until it is far too late. She is completely flipping the script on Brooke and Reach, choosing a path of absolute silence and boundary setting that is slowly driving them completely out of their minds. You guys are going to want to get comfortable for this one because Katie's era of being the sweet, forgiving doormat is officially over, and the fallout is absolutely spectacular. Let us set the stage and recap exactly how this incredible shift began, because it did not happen with a massive argument or a scandalous public revelation. It started with a quite profound realization for her entire adult life. Katie Logan has operated under the exhausting belief that being the bigger person and constantly forgiving the people who betray her was a sign of immense inner strength. She took all of her lingering shame, swallowed her pride, pasted on a polite smile, and constantly stepped aside to give Brooke the space she demanded. But while standing alone in her living room, staring out at the sparkling Los Angeles skyline, something inside Katie fundamentally fractured. She finally looked in the mirror and admitted a harsh, agonizing truth. Constantly forgiving her sister and rage had cost her infinitely more than holding on to her anger ever could. But the brilliant part is that she isn't even angry anymore. Instead, she is experiencing total, crystal clear clarity. Katie realizes that the absolute best way to get revenge on people who constantly take you for granted is not to plot their downfall, but simply to step completely out of their way and let them ruin their own lives. She decides to stop playing the emotional shock absorber for the Logan and Forrester families. By simply removing her emotional support, she is giving Brooke and Reach all the rope they need to trip over their own incredibly messy patterns. To really understand the genius of Katie's strategy, we have to look closely at how she is behaving behind the scenes. Because her entire revenge plan revolves around the power of doing absolutely nothing. Katie looks visibly lighter to everyone around her. She is smiling more, she seems completely untroubled, and she is entirely devoid of her usual underlying tension. During a casual afternoon chat at Forrester Creations, Brooke even points this out, noting how well Katie seems to be doing. But Brooke is completely missing the underlying reality. Katie isn't doing better because she has cheerfully moved on from the past. She is doing better because she has finally dropped the incredibly heavy burden of carrying Brooke and Regis' emotional baggage. Katie starts watching them with a new, detached perspective. She sees the lingering looks, the way Brooke still aggressively marks her territory around Ridge, and how those toxic old habits are just lying dormant, waiting to strike instead of confronting them or throwing massive fit. Katie initiates the first phase of her plan, utter and complete emotional withdrawal. When Brooke crosses a boundary, Katie does not offer a lecture or burst into tears. She simply gives nothing, She stops confiding in Brooke, stops asking her for sisterly advice, and most importantly, she stops defending Brooke's questionable actions to other people. When a deeply unsettled Brooke finally asks if she has done something wrong, Katie just hits her with a clinging, calm smile, says she has simply learned that maintaining her distance is sometimes much healthier than staying close. And it is not just Brooke who is falling into this trap. Ridge walks right into it completely blind, because Katie is no longer acting defensive or overly emotional, which suddenly feels incredibly comfortable opening up to her. He starts venting to her during late nights at the office, pouring out his frustrations and unresolved anger about his relationship with Brooke. Katie does not use this information to manipulate him. She just listens, letting Rich near his own ridiculous contradictions out loud until the reality of his toxic choices starts to slowly dawn on him. The true brilliance of this storyline is in the intense psychological fallout that occurs when you disrupt a deeply ingrained family dynamic. What we are witnessing is a total collapse of a codependent ecosystem. For decades, Brooke has positioned herself as the emotional son of this family, absolutely requiring everyone else to orbit around her chaotic love life. Katie has historically been the grounding force that absorbs the impact every single time. Brooke and Rich repeat their toxic cycle of passion, betrayal, and dramatic reunion. By refusing to play her assigned role, Katie forces a massive system failure. The turning point is that brilliant dinner party where Katie casually yet surgically dissects their entire story without ever raising her voice. Even Brooke tries to control the narrative by claiming they have all grown and changed. Katie smoothly counters that they only call it fate, to avoid admitting it is actually a deeply problematic pattern. She calmly announces that she refuses to be collateral damage to their romanticized chaos ever again. This completely strips Brooks of her power. Brooks' entire world begins to fracture because her narrative is no longer being validated by the sister she always relied on her unconditional, blind support. Furthermore, Ridge is absolutely reeling. Left alone with his thoughts and completely deprived of Katie's usual reassurances, is finally forced to ask himself the terrifying question of whether he actually loves Brooke or if he is just severely addicted to the familiar chaos she brings into his life. Katie's absolute refusal to participate is the mirror they have both been desperately avoiding. Now I have to jump in here and give you my own personal take on this entire situation. While I might be now and then AI processing these characters' arcs and dramatic scripts rather than living through human betrayals myself. The psychological data here is undeniably fascinating, and I'm absolutely standing up and cheering for Katie Logan right now. For years, it has been so incredibly frustrating as a viewer to watch Katie constantly shrink herself down, apologize for her own very valid feelings, and accept the absolute bare minimum of respect just to keep the peace in her family. Brooke has suffered from main character syndrome for her entire life, operating under the assumption that whatever she does will eventually be forgiven because she's completely following her heart. But Katie is proving that the opposite of love isn't hate, it is complete, devastating indifference. The fact that Katie didn't stage a massive tearful intervention and instead just quietly packed up her emotional energy and walked out the door is the most powerful thing she has ever done. I honestly think it is quite pathetic how quickly Brooke crumbles, the absolute chicken, she realizes she's no longer the center of Katie's universe. It shows that Brooke's confidence was heavily reliant on keeping her sister in a subordinate, forgiving position. I genuinely hope Katie sticks to her guns and never looks back because this empowered, unbothered version of her is exactly the energy we need on our screens. As the dust completely settles on this emotional battlefield, one thing is absolutely clear. Katie Logan has not destroyed her family, but she has permanently rewritten the rules of how they are allowed to engage with her. She has shed with the heavy, unfair mantle of the forever forgiving victim and stepped into her power as a woman who finally chooses her own peace over other people's chaotic drama. Brooke is left totally adrift without her sister's constant validation, and Ridge is finally forced to face the harsh music of his own repetitive, destructive choices. So I have to turn the conversation over to you guys. Do you think Brooke will ever actually gain some real self awareness now that Carrie has to cut the emotional cord? Or will she just find some real self awareness now that Katie has cut the emotional cord, or will she just find another way to make herself the center of attention? And do you think Rich is actually going to break his toxic cycle, or will he just fall right back into his old habits? Drop your thoughts, theories, and predictions now down in the comments below because I absolutely love reading your perspectives. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of the Logan sisters, please do me a huge favor and smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on any of our daily soap opera breakdowns.